Hunger, assessed by levels of malnutrition, is estimated to have affected 122 million more people in 2022 than in 2019, which leaves the figure in 2022 at about 735 million. 30% of the global population, 2.4 billion, were either moderately or severely food insecure in 2022, and this food insecurity disproportionately impacts women and people living in rural areas. But what about progress? Are any areas of the globe cutting hunger levels? In the year between 2021 and 2022, progress in hunger levels have improved in parts of Asia and in Latin America, but overall progress is unfortunately far and few between, as hunger is still on the rise in Western Asia, the Caribbean, and all sub-regions of Africa, leading to the projection that around 600 million people globally will be severely undernourished by 2030. Both the pandemic and the war in Ukraine have unsurprisingly had a large effect on this projection, as it's estimated that 119 million people will be hungrier in 2030 due to the pandemic, and 23 million due to the Russo-Ukrainian war. And climate change is to have its impact too. The El Niño effect, a warming of surface waters in the Eastern Pacific Ocean, could have a strong influence on food security in many regions. For example, the dry corridor of Central America, covering area from El Salvador to Nicaragua, is facing drought-like conditions, which is expected to negatively affect the May to August 2024 harvest. And economic stagnation as well is not helping. According to World Bank figures in their November 2023 Food Security Update, stagnant economic growth has caused 54 countries to experience annual food inflation higher than 10% in October 2023, adding to growing costs for vulnerable communities. For example, current surges in rice prices has created new levels of food insecurity for a significant amount of the global population due to its popularity. 42% of the world were unable to afford a healthy diet in 2021. The pandemic has also negatively affected this, as there has been an overall increase of 134 million people lacking healthy diets compared to 2019. And for children under 5, the situation looks like this. 22% were stunted, meaning they didn't grow to normal size due to malnutrition. 6.8% were wasted, meaning low weight for height. And 5.6% were overweight. But has there been any progress with this? Some progress has been made on increasing exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life, and stunting has reduced among children under 5. But the world isn't looking likely to achieve the 2030 targets set out by the Sustainable Development Goals. Just to give a few examples, children overweight and low birth weights have changed little in recent years, and the current prevalence of wasting is more than double the 2030 target. The UN's 2023 report focuses heavily on urbanisation as a trend that has had a great effect on agri-food systems, and will continue to, as it's projected that 70% of people by 2030 will live in urban areas, up from 56% in 2023. So what challenges and opportunities does an increasingly urbanised world bring with it? Unfortunately, spatial inequalities remain. Food insecurity affects more people living in rural areas. Moderate or severe food insecurity affected 33% of adults living in rural areas, compared to 26% in urban areas. Malnourishment in children also mostly shows this, as the prevalence of child stunting and wasting is higher in rural areas. However, being overweight is higher in urban settings, partly due to the higher levels of cheaper, fast, convenient foods, and a lack in availability of vegetables and fruits to meet the daily requirements of healthy diets for everyone. And what about farmers? The rise of urban supermarkets in some cases has removed small farmers from value chains, and urban expansion could lead to some farmers losing their land. For example, in some countries, farmers are well compensated for selling, but in others their land is simply dispossessed unfairly. But on the other hand, farmers get better access to agricultural equipment, thanks to urbanisation, and there are increased opportunities for employment outside of farming, especially for women and children. Overall, however, the picture is currently bleak, and perhaps this is a serious wake-up call for any government that believes the goals around global hunger are close to being met. Cindy McCain, the World Food Programme Executive Director, said, "Hunger is rising while the resources we urgently need to protect the most vulnerable are running dangerously low. As humanitarians, we are facing the greatest challenge we've ever seen. We need the global community to act swiftly, smartly, and compassionately to reverse course and turn the tide on hunger." So what are some of the practical solutions to turn this tide? Public investment in research and development into technologies that enable healthier food systems is recommended by the UN report, as is further research into a greater understanding of how the rural-urban divide is changing and how that can inform the future of agri-food systems. But where is this investment? Well, according to the UNESCO Institute of Statistics, investment in R&D has reached a record high of $1.7 trillion globally in 2023. But how much of this actually goes towards sustainable innovation? Only 7% of funding for agricultural innovation for the Global South actually contains sustainability-led goals. Yet if that figure were as high as 50%, according to the white paper, it could contribute a further $30 billion towards transforming food systems. This is why at the Food Systems Summit in 2021, the UN Secretary General set a target for countries to invest 1% of their food system-related GDP in innovation in a bid to keep warming to 2 degrees, reduce water waste, food waste, and improve soil management, amongst other priorities. The innovation, however, according to the report, will not be worthwhile unless it is inclusive of all stakeholders in the process of decision-making, particularly those most vulnerable to the changes climate change, economic stagnation, and urbanisation might bring.